Let's talk about fall 2025 fashion trends. It's every fashion fan's favorite time of year. I like fall for about a month before it just turns into the prequel to winter. Winter sucks. I don't know, maybe it's too late to talk about fall since we're already into it, but I might title this video something like just like things that I'm into this fall, because while I think these are trends, I think we're in a space where it's hard to say, we're not homogenous enough to say like, this is what everyone's going to be doing. Everyone's going to be in their little groups doing their own thing, but overall, I think these are some broader trends that we're going to see and have been seeing for a little bit. One thing that's nice about these things is that you can kind of talk about things that people have been doing for a while now, and they still haven't fully caught on. Like I just saw someone talking about barrel jeans the other day as if it was like a new thing. So these are trends, but they're mostly just like things that I'm interested in, ways I want to be dressing this fall, and then that will promptly shift up when it comes to winter and my life turns miserable. Before I start the list, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. And don't forget to leave a like, but I've got my handy dandy list right here so I don't forget anything. Let's do it. So the number one thing is going to be leather jackets. Leather jackets are obviously a mainstay of fall and spring fashion, but I'm seeing them freaking everywhere, and I really want to explore some more of them, particularly a certain type of leather jacket. I have a decent amount, but mostly in the slimmer space. I'm looking to see more of that like baggy sack-like silhouette, or just like aggressive, almost oversized take on like shoulders, things like that. So some really great pieces I've seen lately. I might make a whole video about Coach. It's no secret that Coach has been killing it lately, but some of the jackets they put together in their actually 2025 show, I think it was, look incredible. One of them is for sale. It's a very like cropped one right now. It's a ladies jacket, but I'm hoping they put more out because I haven't seen all the looks from the runway, but it's awesome. Like I'll put up pictures of it so you can see it, but like Coach obviously been doing awesome, but I think the designer who's been killing it the most is YSL. Their last few shows have had some just amazing leather jackets in them. The one they just showed for Paris Fashion Week was no exception. They're almost getting too big for me. Like it's getting like a little cartoonish. It was already exaggerated. But the silhouette that I'm really seeing a lot of and what I'm looking to experiment more with is that sort of sack, baggy, very 90s look with like the bunched, like elasticated waist, cropping obviously, but really a really slouchy look with the leather. But another comparable look, like I said, oversized, is the sort of aggressive, more 80s, some 90s shoulder, very structured shoulder. That you're seeing more in like the YSL looks. Again, I'll try and put some up here. Either of those I think is going to be awesome, and I'd love to dabble in that space. I find the YSL look is maybe a little bit harder to find vintage. You can find tons of that 90s sack look thrifted. Even the other day, I saw some posts from Zara that shook me. You know, I don't know that I've ever bought a piece from Zara. That's not true. I have a Ruigi Zara collab. Actually, it kind of fits this vibe, but varsity jacket that he did that I thought was pretty cool, just in terms of it being like, you know, big sleeve and everything, crop jacket. But so I just have like a little bit of a mental block about like buying fast fashion or whatever, even though I buy stuff from Uniqlo. But I mean, their designs are nice. I just think, again, I'll try and put some pictures up here, but like, if you're in the market for that kind of thing and you shop Zara, definitely take a look at what they got. They got a women's leather trench. It's faux leather, I'm pretty sure, but it looks awesome. The other thing is I don't always trust Zara's photography because they can make anything look good. I've been in the store for Zara before and looked at some of their stuff, and it's like the cheapest crap in the world. They may be trying to push it up a little bit because some of their leather jackets that they've got are 100% leather. So that's impressive to me. But again, they have like a men's leather jacket there that I like, but it's like $300+ and it is real leather. But again, to speak about vintage, if I'm going to be spending that much, you could get it a third of the price or even less. Similar looking jacket, thrifted, vintage, whatever, and probably be better quality. It might have some rip stains, whatever, but we call that patina and we move on with our lives. Some other notable ones that I've seen that are really cool. I mean, Balmain just did a show that I thought they had a leather jacket look that was great. I saw some cool ones from Celine. Carhartt and Sacai collab that just dropped. It's a different look for sure, but they have some really sick leather jackets. The price is killing me. Can't do that. Can't do this. So yeah, leather jackets, get yourself one. I think I'm looking to cop one. Toot sweet. Now, I know I talked about slouchy there, so I'm gonna be a hypocrite here for a second. But again, with the aggressive like YSL shoulders, I think we're gonna be seeing like the outfit lately, the last couple of years even, has been that like slouchy, oversized, you know, like like a boxy sweatshirt or boxy tee, something like that. I'm not saying boxy's going away, but I do think we're going to start to see more actually structured outfits, particularly when it comes to like coats, blazers, things like that. I might even put up some footage of one that I was wearing just earlier today that has a little bit more shoulder to it. Again, YSL kind of leading the way with those very aggressive shouldered, suits and jackets that they've been doing. I think they've been killing it again. But I've seen some really cool stuff from like Recto that's like a mix of slouchy and structured that I think is really interesting. I think we may... Again, though I like that slouchy jacket look, I think we may move towards more interesting structured shapes in general, particularly with your outerwear. And I think along with that is like doing really interesting layering with your outerwear pieces. I mean, the reason why everyone loves fall so much is because you can start layering again. You can layer in the summer, you just gotta go light. But, really, I'm really liking these looks that experiment with a lot of like flowiness and just mixing your shapes a little bit, your silhouette. Now's a really good time to do it. So bagginess, drape, along with a little bit of that element of structure, I think is a knockout look. Along with that, I'll just kind of pivot into, I think the uniform has kind of been played out at this point of just like baggy everything, slouchy everything. Particularly when it comes to like your proportion of like your tops and bottoms. I think like overly baggy bottoms, that one is ripe for change, and I think you're going to start seeing more variety in that in particular. So, one thing that kind of came out, it's almost like the exact same look that I was seeing out of Celine's latest show, and I think Loewe. They had a really like interesting kind of wonkiness between their top and bottom pieces, where the tops were kind of large, oversized, structured like blazers, and then the bottom had more like a little bit more, the Celine show, they were basically like skinny pants, which I am not saying skinny is back per se, but I think playing with different silhouettes of the pants, and particularly with the combination of the tops, is going to be interesting, if that makes any sense. So like experimenting with your silhouette a little bit. Let's get away from this, all baggy, all boxy all the time, and let's get in a little more like, today I'm going to wear a more aggressive shoulder with a slim, dare I say, skinny pant. Or... and this is where I'm going to pivot again. These things have been in, but I think they're going to continue to be in, and I still haven't seen like super mainstream adoption of them, so I think it's still a trend and something that I'm personally wearing a lot more and exploring. Pleats. Give me them pleats. It's so funny, man. I remember coming up, being young and being like, ugh, pleats. It is just funny the way that cycles work like that. But like now I can't get enough of them. I love them. And speaking of, what I talked about thrifting when it comes to like leather jackets, thrifting vintage, like old slacks, now is the time, bro. Because again, it has not crossed over to the mainstream. I've talked to normies, whatever. I'm not being mean, but people who are like pleats, ugh, like they're still in that mindset. So, you can generally go to your local Goodwill, whatever, and pick up some, somebody just cleaned out their grandpa's closet. It's a gosh dang treasure trove of pleats, all right? But you are starting to see them more and more. I personally like more than just like a single pleat, but again, Zara has a lot of that look in them. Along with pleats, well, let me stay in this space for a second here. Flares also, I think, are going to continue to be big. Flares obviously had a huge moment last year with the Super Bowl, flared jeans, but I think flared everything. Amiri, I keep talking them up, but they've been doing a lot with flared pants. You're starting to see it everywhere. And, the interesting thing about flare is it lets you have like a little bit more of a narrow thigh. I don't want to say bell bottoms, but like I basically bought some bell bottoms earlier this year. They're very tight in the thigh. I tend to prefer, I guess, a little bit looser, but really loving that flared look. Wrangler Rancher dress jeans. Check them out. They're cheap as dirt, and they have a nice silhouette. It's also not a very aggressive flare, so it's a good way to like ease your way into it. They used to offer more colors, and the last time I checked, they didn't. The one thing I'll say is that the sizing on those is jacked up. So if you're going to buy them, just like be prepared to send them back. You can get them on Amazon, which as far as I'm concerned for returns is basically free. So check those out. But while we're still in this space, talking about pleats and everything, what does pleated pants mean? Well, it means you're going to have to ride those waists high and tight, boys. And along with that comes, what are you going to do? You got to tuck in your shirt, okay? I know it's a bit basic as hell, but like I saw a lot of discourse recently about like, so we tucking in shirts now? It's like, yeah. You're seeing a lot of like really aggressively cropped shirts And that's cool. And I think you're going to continue to see that. You know, like I think J.W. Anderson been doing a lot. I think he has some from Uniqlo that are like aggressively cropped, and they kind of sit right at that like waistline. But you know what's easier than that is just tucking your dang shirt, bro. Especially if you're wearing a lot of like pleated pants, you know, higher rise, things like that that sit at the waistline or whatever. You know, just experiment with it. I think some guys literally have like a block about tucking in their shirt. Again, it's kind of one of those things that like when I was younger, it was like, ugh, don't do that. What are you, a grandfather? So this all trickles down, right? It's a through line. Along with tucking in your shirt comes, well, I gotta wear a belt, right? Belts. If you saw my Amiri video, you saw that I've recently become obsessed with belts and I can't stop buying them. But I think statement belts, thin belts are back. I associate thin belts a lot with like the Eddie Slimane, you know, look, but I think they're back in. You know, you can do it with a thick belt too, but I'm really liking a thinner belt. You know, wear some ladies' belts. Screw it. But particularly belts with some sort of like statement element to them, like a chain. I'm loving a belt chain, or even just a little like Louis Vuitton has these like nice little, just like little LV charm hanging off it. Charms, basically. The charms ain't just for girls in their bags. So statement belts, but also this just opening up into the broader category of accessories in general. I think for a while there, I was just seeing like keychains on dudes exclusively. Like dudes were loving the keychains, but that seems like that's where it started and stopped, right? It was just a keychain. Everyone had the little carabiner with their keys on them. Boom. Belt chains, wallet chains, okay, I think are ripe for a comeback. And then, you know, play with your rings, but also like don't be afraid to throw on some nice statement like bracelets, you know, go big bracelets, go nice, you know, layered necklaces. I mean, I've talked about chrome a lot. As much as like they can be frustrating, I'm itching for some chrome, and I think people are really chrome is definitely still having a moment, even if their business practices kind of suck. So you know, I'm always looking for more rings. And I mean, eyewear. The thing I'm really trying not to spend money on because or save up my money for is I want some chrome glasses bad, and they are expensive. So hopefully you see me in some of those soon. But you know, if you pick up some statement eyewear, I personally don't need glasses. I personally don't have an issue if you want to wear glasses just as an accessory, you know, not, you know, prescription or whatever. Let me know. Do you think that that's lame to do? I guess I just see it as like another accessory for your face. You know, Gentle Monster is having a really big moment right now. I think they've got some really cool glasses. Statement glasses in general, I think, are going to continue to be a thing even into the fall. Like, there's no reason you can't. It's still hot. It was 77 degrees today in New York. So, you know, we're going to continue wearing our shades, but the like meta glasses thing, I'm personally interested. Maybe it's just because I'm like recording videos and stuff, but I'm personally a little bit interested in that. And I'm not even like a big like tech wearable guy. I don't have an Apple Watch or anything. So I was looking at, I don't like, maybe I'm turning unk status for all these things I'm saying, but I've never really liked Oakley. But Oakley's like Meta collab, I actually think those are kind of dope. They've got one that's like clear plastic. It reminds me of very like Y2K. I think those are pretty sick. So I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on those, just speaking of eyewear. And then finally, on the accessories topic, I was in a vintage shop and I saw this watch that was like, it was a women's watch, but it was like stainless steel, had a very small face. And I'm not a watch guy, thank God. If you ever catch me spending, you know, the amount you would spend on a car, on a Rolex, just take me out back behind the barn. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's no shade on watch guys. I'm glad I'm not one of you. You know what I'm saying? Someday that bug will probably bite me and I'll enter the ninth gate of hell. But, you know, as it is, the watches that I get, I have a couple in my rotation. I like them. This one, like I said, I'm not a big watch guy. I'm not a big watch guy. I tend to like smaller watches, which is very, I guess, not in vogue with men, but like, just like, so this is just one I got as a gift from a family member that didn't want it anymore. And it's great. I love it. It's just a simple little watch. I don't think it's any like Whitnauer. I don't think it's any like special brand or anything, but nice little leather strap. But yeah, I was in this vintage shop, saw this it was very minimalist watch, all steel face. And it got me thinking like, I should just pick up a couple like, again, thrifted, vintage, cheaper watches. And especially like, you know, no bones about getting a women's watch. Again, I like the smaller profile a little bit. And I'd like to get more like just in that stainless steel space. They go so much with everything. But Another point I should mention is like mix your metals. I think there's no issue with that. Man, you know what this video is? I'm realizing this video is like a compilation of things I used to hate when I was younger, but I used to be an all silver guy. And I'm definitely embracing like gold as I get older. But with that comes like, oh, I've got all this silver jewelry. I don't have any problem mixing your metals together. I don't think that's an issue. You know, silver bracelet, gold ring, whatever. I think it's fine. And so along with that, I'd love to maybe get like a watch that had the mixed metals right in it, because that would be versatile and kind of make a statement of like tying things together. So I think minimal sneakers will continue to be in. You know, I've covered this on the channel a lot, that like flat sneaker, minimal sneaker, everyone's doing their version of it. Miu Miu, obviously, but like, you know, I've talked about Amiri, I've talked about Rick, Prada, everyone's jumping on it. Adidas, obviously. What I think the real move is, obviously do that if you're into that, but what I'm looking at is the Margiela Futures just came back, and they've been having like a little, you know, obviously the Gats are like huge. I made a video about Gats, check it out. So everyone's very interested in Gats. I think just like that, they're like, okay, what else does Margiela have? Oh, they've got the Futures. So that's been like bubbling up a little bit. And Margiela just re-released the Futures. Go on Farfetch right now. They're there. They're like $11.90. Steep. But for an all calf leather shoe, whatever, they're cool. But what that kind of signals to me is like, maybe, you know, sneakers have been dead for a little bit, and we were all buying our loafers. We were all getting back into the quiet luxury dress shoe game, which I don't think is ending. But I wonder if we're ready for high tops to come back. And high tops have only been out for like a couple years now. You know what I mean? Like the Jordan 1's dead, whatever. And that will remain to be true for a bit. But maybe some other alternative high tops are going to start coming back in. The Futures being one of them, with like that big like collar. So maybe like Air Force highs will come back in. That would be interesting. Or maybe just like along with this, the Futures were like a big like swag era shoe. And I've definitely heard rumblings that like, oh, the swag era is coming back. What I think is interesting about that is I don't know that the swag era will come back in the way that it was. I'm interested to see the swag era come back changed, because streetwear is kind of down bad right now. Everyone wants to dress a little bit more adult. How do we reinterpret the swag era through the lens of a little bit more of a matured adult take? So like the Future is a good example, because it is like a high top sneaker, but it's like very minimalist and like all leather, you know, nice materials. Maybe the Balenciaga Arena will make a little bit of a comeback. Some might say it never left. But yeah, we've been going so low and minimal, maybe we're ready to go back up again. I mean, Celine just came out with those like boxing sneakers, which I don't particularly love, but maybe they're a signal of the way that the market's moving. What do you guys think? So I mentioned the quiet luxury thing. I think people have been saying like quiet luxury is dead. I don't know that maximalism is back in. I don't think quiet luxury is dead. I think we're kind of dressing a little bit more adult. And at least that's what I like. I hate to use that term because it sounds like I'm being like, we're dressing like adults. I just mean a more traditionally like, what's a good word for it? Someone was criticizing the Jill Sanders show, or I was criticizing the Jill Sanders show, and everyone said everything this season feels like office clothes. And I do kind of agree with that criticism, but I think it comes from a place of like, people are wanting to dress a little bit nicer. I think maybe like nicer materials, hopefully. You know, I mentioned the leather before. That's one thing I'm hoping for, that people are looking more into like cashmere, natural materials, really paying attention to what they're buying. You know, there's been such a conversation and hubbub about like Shein and where these materials are coming from. I think Quince has done really well as a brand, because they're actually like, this is Mongolian cashmere, and it's at a like good price, really solid price actually for what they're selling. So you may see those like mid-tier brands that are actually doing good quality materials and stuff start to rise up over the fast fashions a little bit. But along with that, like I said, just dressing like kind of, I guess I want to say like anything but jeans. You know, jeans have been the discourse for so much. There's so much more interesting in the legwear space than just denim. I'm not saying denim's going away, but like, let's start wearing some more slacks, trousers, wool pants. You know, again, Balmain's show that they just did. I got to put up some pictures because like I was shook by these pants they got. I've not done a ton of research into what they are. They're just like freaking exploding in all directions. They're so slouchy and flowy and beautiful. The women's pants, but you know, I just love that, the way that fabric flows. So I think, you know, I think we want to be seeing a little bit more of that. And again, to speak to the structure that I talked about earlier, that's personally what I'm interested in is hints of rigid structure flowing around drape. And then along with that, I think just the last thing I'll mention is like, I will always probably be interested in distressing to some extent. Again, I'm a Balenciaga fan. I love, rips and holes and stuff. But I guess I'm feeling like in general, distressing is kind of out and clean is in. Like a clean boy aesthetic. And that goes part and parcel with like dressing more adult, more blazers, more slacks, more like press shirts, things like that. I think you're seeing I would replace distressing with patina. And in my head, the difference there is just like drape, sag, wear, vintage, as opposed to just like, hey, I deliberately put a bunch of holes in this thing. Or if you're thrifting, like personally, I'm thrifting for a jacket right now. I don't want it to have a bunch of like rips in it. I can tolerate some because I'm looking for vintage, but I'd like to get it in like good condition. And that's usually in the past I've been like, yeah, cool, distressed Carhartt jacket, let's go. But now I'm like, no, I'd rather it look like lived in, but not like deliberately messed with, if that makes sense. And that's like just as a stupid aside, I read an article once about like things that like the wealthy value in their objects, and one of them was patina. And that's something really interesting because you get patina from something if it's well made and lasts for a long time. So like a pair of like heritage workwear boots, they look really good after you've used them for a long time because they develop a natural worn-in look, as opposed to something that was like cheap and never made well in the first place that just like breaks on you and just like rips apart, falls apart. You can't use it anymore. So something has to be good enough to last the ages to actually develop patina. So those are the things that I'm interested in this fall. That was just a bunch of nonsense, I'm sure, but I'll try and make it seem structured when I make this video. Will I succeed? We'll find out. What are you guys interested in dressing? What do you think about these picks? What did you think of Paris Fashion Week? You know what? Just write whatever you want in the comments, because I just asked you everything under the sun. But the one thing I do know is that you should subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Why not? But that's what I'm doing. Hope you guys like the video. Have a nice trip. See you next fall.